Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Brennan Donahoe here with Brennan's Beats. We've got a lot in the works right now, putting together about 3 different reviews. But news coming out here in the music industry, and I can't ignore it as a critic. So I thought with the release of this year's Grammy listings, I thought I'd go through what they listed and give you some of my picks. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to, lend any kind of expertise on some of these things. I couldn't tell you who the top musical theater album was. I couldn't tell you the number 1 classical producer of the year. I can't tell you all that kind of stuff. But we are going to dig into some of the things that I have a little something to say about. And you guys, if you guys have any opinions in it, on maybe topics that I didn't talk about, maybe get into that in the comments. The most notable of these will be metal. I just genuinely I don't know enough about heavy metal music, and as a very devoted fan base, and I don't want to get into it when I don't really know about it. So let's get through first some of the things that I don't have a ton to say about, but just some little things I noticed. For Best Music Video, you've got a whole group, but Kendrick Lamar's Humble going up against Jay-Z's The Story of OJ. That is kind of the main face-off that you're going to see throughout all of these categories, is that Kendrick Lamar's Damn and Jay-Z's 444 are the 2 big heavy hitters this year. And they keep going up against each other, and this is a perfect place for them to start off, because I think those were 2 of the best music videos of the year. I would give a slight edge to Humble, because I think it had a bigger scope, and it used some really cool camera tricks and things like that. But Story of OJ was really, really interesting, and I enjoyed the animation and everything like that. When it comes to the pop vocal track of the year, I think that pop vocal album of the year, I think it's very likely that Ed Sheeran's Divide will win it, but I would honestly prefer absolutely anything else. I didn't mind Divide, but it was such a lazy record, and it was so much worse than what he could have done, that I just really want to punish him by not giving him anything this year. So that's my opinion on that. Now, when you get into the traditional pop record of the year, obviously I don't have much to say about that. Michael Bublé is nominated. I think he'll probably end up taking it. It's a very notable name. It's actually interesting to see that Bob Dylan is nominated this year for Triplicate, which I wasn't a huge fan of. I haven't heard the whole thing, but most of what I've heard is all right. But it's just interesting to see him nominated again. In the traditional R&B performance, it's really interesting to see that Childish Gambino is nominated for Redbone. I think he'll easily take it home. But when you get into a category like traditional R&B, I think it's cool to see a guy who is so popular with younger people still be nominated there. For R&B performance, I think that Bruno Mars is likely to win. The most interesting thing about that category to me is The Weeknd being absent from it. With Starboy releasing early this year, it was fairly successful commercially, and I'm curious why he really hasn't gotten. I think he maybe got 1 nod this year, not very many. New artists, I think that Lil Uzi will probably win, just with the big tracks he's had this year, Bad and Bougie and EXO Tour Life, or EXO Tour Lift 3, or however you want to say it. But I think maybe SZA might pull it out if they're really looking to kind of go for a more conscious underground feel. My personal issue here is that the punk rock jam Idols was inexplicably snubbed in this category. I can't imagine why. Their debut record is, I would say, easily the best debut record of the year, and I think one of the better records of the year. Just good, angry punk rock music, and they really made waves. I mean, they were really successful. I'm very, very surprised to see they got absolutely no nominations this year in the Grammys, and I'm very surprised by that. And then when it comes to record of the year, I think Humble will probably win this. And when these it's Humble versus the Story of OJ. Kendrick Lamar's Humble, Story of OJ being Jay-Z, and I think that Humble will probably take it. It was a much more popular track, but Story of OJ, I just genuinely do think that it's a better track. I don't think that 444 is a better album by any means, but I think that is its strongest track compared to Humble, which is not really the strongest track on Damn. So let's get into the best performances. We're going to take it one genre at a time. So we'll start with the best country solo performance. I think that Chris Stapleton is an obvious shoe-in to win here. No real question about it. I don't even know really who else would be a good choice. I mean, Chris Stapleton is kind of the darling of country music right now, especially the darling of country music for people who don't genuinely or generally listen to country music that much. He's somebody who's really transcended the genre. Country duo and group performance, I absolutely refuse to comment on this because I will not dignify them with a response, considering that Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit are not nominated in this group. That is absolutely ridiculous. I will give them credit that Florida Georgia Line is not nominated, but aside from that, I'm not going to dignify them with a response. Jason Isbell got horribly snubbed this year. He put out one of the best records of the year. Very, very impressive. And he's gaining a bigger and bigger underground following, and I can't imagine why the Grammys, when they're awarding people like Stapleton and they're awarding people a few years ago like Sturgill Simpson, why they wouldn't come here and give Isabel, who I think is probably the best of that group, the nod that he deserves. Now when we get into best rock performance, I think the obvious choice here is Chris Cornell. I think he will take it. Obviously, fantastic talent, just passed away recently. I actually really like the Leonard Cohen track that's nominated here, and I mean he just passed away recently, so it's very possible, although I don't know that he has the kind of the sentimentality that Cornell had. But yeah, I think that in my opinion is the best track in the group. Huge snubs here. Idols could have won with Mother. Royal Blood with a brand new record that was really solid could have won. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard have been just slaving away in the studio recently. I mean, they're putting out 4 or 5 records in a year. It's incredible. Proto Martyr's new track, or new record, I think is far and away better than anything you're going to see on this list. And their track, A Private Understanding, is quite a bit better than anything I think that you see on this list. So personally, I would have, if I had my choice, given it to Proto Martyr. But since I don't, I would give it to Leonard Cohen. Best rap performance, I think it'll most likely go to either Jay-Z or Bodak Yellow, which I don't think should even be nominated. They're just a bit more popular. I would give it, I think Kendrick probably deserves it for Humble. When it comes to just the performance side of it, I think he puts in a better performance as a rapper on that track than anyone else in the group. When it comes to rap sung performance, I can't imagine a universe in which Jay-Z and Beyonce are nominated for the very same song for a Grammy and don't win it. So that seems like an obvious choice to me. I think Kendrick Lamar with Loyalty featuring Rihanna should win it. I think that that's better. On either side, I think Rihanna does better vocals, and I think that Kendrick does a much better job on the rapping front. It's odd to see that Eminem didn't make the list, featuring Beyonce again with Walk on Water. I really enjoyed that track. And I'm actually surprised that XXX Tentacion did not get a nod. I didn't think that record was fantastic or anything, but I do think that the main song that made it off of there, which I'm blanking on the name right now, but I think that was a really good track. And I think that with the following that he has with young people, I'm surprised that the Grammys didn't say, well, let's go ahead and maybe get some credit with the young people. Now let's move on to the best songs of the year. As far as country song, Broken Halos, Chris Stapleton, obvious win. It should win. It likely will win. Maybe Drinking Problem. But that would be a very mainstream choice, and I think that the Grammys are trying to avoid that accusation. So I would be very surprised to see them go with that. As best rap song of the year, Humble, likely to win. By far, one of the most popular Kendrick tracks. I think I think I would give it to The Story of OJ. Like I said, I think as a song, that's a little bit better. Kendrick's performance on Humble is better, but as a song, OJ is just a tad bit better. Bodak Yellow should not be in this listing again. I'm surprised to see that there's no Tyler the Creator and no Vince Staples. Vince Staples didn't get a single nod for his record Big Fish this year. That surprises me a little bit. I thought that would maybe be a little bit more popular. Best rock song, I think Atlas Rise will probably win. Atlas Rise by Metallica. I think that this record has really been kind of a comeback for an old group like Metallica. They're kind of a return to form, and that's the kind of thing that the Grammys will always honor. I think the best rock song I've heard this year is Private Understanding by Proto Martyr. Let me say that again. Private Understanding by Proto Martyr. And there's zero chance that ever wins or ever gets nominated. I understand that. But really a big snub, I think. I think if you want to be, the Oscars go out here and they honor these really artsy films. Not the most artsy, but the more popular artsy films. And this is a more popular art record. And it really bothers me that it doesn't get the recognition I think it deserves. Maybe the Foo Fighters track might pull out a win here. But I didn't care for that record. I didn't think that was one of their best. Now, Song of the Year across the board. Now, there's obviously always some confusion between Record of the Year and Song of the Year. If I'm not mistaken, the understanding I have is that Song of the Year goes to the songwriters, whereas Record of the Year goes to the performer. And it has more to do with kind of the whole work, whereas Song of the Year just has to do with the track as it was written by the songwriter. And I think Despacito is an obvious win here. There's an argument to be made over whether or not that's a good thing. 444 might win it from Jay-Z, or maybe the Suicide Hotline track from Logic. But you can make an argument over whether or not Despacito winning is a good thing. Obviously, that's a very pop, dancey song that doesn't really mean anything. It's not that well written from a critical standpoint. But if you're looking at Song of the Year and you're trying to award songwriters whose job is to write music that's going to sell and going to make money, I mean, it's hard for you to tell me that Despacito didn't really accomplish the goal. Now we'll move on to Album of the Year. Here we see Jason Isbell and the 400 Units only nod, and it is infuriating. They are nominated for Americana Record of the Year, Americana Album. Completely ridiculous. It's clearly a country or maybe rock. I mean, I would maybe entertain the idea of it being a rock record, but I would call it country. I mean, if you're going to take tracks like Tupelo and Last of My Kind, I mean, those are country songs. There's no question about that. But I think it should definitely win Americana Record of the Year, and I think that it should have gotten a lot more respect than it did get. Now, when you get to the alternative record of the year, Humans by Gorillaz might win this, only because everyone loves Gorillaz, and they're just kind of a shoe-in. A lot of people will look at this list and say, oh, Gorillaz better win it, and they've never even heard Humans, because Humans is not that good of an album. Compared to the rest of what Gorillaz does, which is really impressive, Humans is not that good. Me, personally, I would pull very hard for Father John Misty, Pure Comedy. It is a dense singer-songwriter kind of album, very reminiscent of solo John Lennon projects, and really dabbles in a lot of complicated ideas. Just a very, very interesting record that I think is worth a listen to anybody who's into alternative music. Country Album of the Year, like I said, should at least include the discussion of Jason Isbell, but it doesn't. From A Room, Volume 1, Chris Stapleton. I think he's going to walk away with, I believe, everything he's nominated in this year. Very, very good record. I think it's actually his best to date. I think it's a little bit better than Traveler was. I think that the vocal performances on it are really impressive. The music is well written. I think it would have been an interesting fight to say, From A Room versus Nashville Sound, and we'll see, Jason Isbell v. Chris Stapleton. That's where that's the discussion that needs to be had in country music right now. But it's not. That is my last, that's probably my second to last interjection of being angry about Jason Isbell not being respected. But yeah, Chris Stapleton's record absolutely should win. I think it will. I'd be surprised if anything knocks it off. I just don't really see anything else here in the listing that could maybe take it away from him. Now we get to the best rock album of the year. Again, Metallica, I think, will take it. I've heard a lot of discussion where Metallica's album is not considered. I think people maybe are underestimating the sentimentality of this record and the fact that everyone wants to see them make a comeback. And, all they had to do was put out like a 7-ish out of 10 record, and everybody say, okay, here's your comeback Grammys, That's what I think is going to happen. Snubs, again, terrible. Idols with Brutalism should be nominated. Proto Martyr should be nominated. Royal Blood should be nominated. Where in the world are the new, any of the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard records this year? I mean, there's 2 or 3 out right now. I think this is a problem. The Grammys do not represent rock music very well. They just never have. They're giving records to people like Alabama Shakes and, groups like that just aren't what rock music is. They either see metal or they see rock as in, the Foo Fighters and things like that. It's not that Foo Fighters aren't rock music, but they aren't at the forefront or the cutting edge of rock anymore. I think that they kind of perpetuate this idea that there's no great music happening in rock anymore, and that the only creative stuff with electric guitars is happening in heavy metal, and that's not true. I mean, there are great punk acts out there right now. There are great all kinds of stuff going on out there right now in rock music, and the Grammys really do not do their job as far as bringing that to the forefront. So now we move on to Album of the Year, kind of the big shebang, kind of what everybody looks at first when they're talking about who's going to win. This is like the Grammys version of Best Picture. So let's look at the nominees. We have Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino, 444 Jay-Z, Damn Kendrick Lamar, Melodrama from Lorde, and 24K Magic Bruno Mars. Now, I think the obvious choice here is Damn from Kendrick Lamar. It's a good record, probably a 7, maybe an 8, very good, and good lord do they owe this man after they took his Grammy away for To Pimp a Butterfly, which is probably the best record since OK Computer, maybe is the most recent thing that I can think that would compare to it, and they take that Grammy away and they give it to Taylor Swift for 1984. So I think Kendrick should not only win Album of the Year, but he should get an honorary I'm Sorry Grammy, and they should jack it out of Taylor Swift's house and give it to Kendrick, because that was an absolute crime. Now, I think there's a chance of 444 winning. I don't think it's a very good one. I mean, I think if they're gonna give it to a rap album, they're gonna give it to Damn. As far as Melodrama or 24K Magic, I would be surprised. The only way that these records would win is if they were going for a very, very safe choice. I would be very surprised. I think that they would get a lot of flack for that. Awaken My Love, not good enough to win, not good enough to deserve it. Definitely good enough to be in this list, and I'm happy for Childish Gambino that he made his way into the best record talks. A lot of teenagers probably thought he should have been in it long before now, but I think that this is the record that should have got him there. He really stepped out of his comfort zone to do something really impressive. Now, here's what I would have done. I would have taken Lorde out, 24K Magic out, and maybe even drop Childish Gambino. And then you put in Chris Stapleton's From A Room Volume 1, Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, Nashville Sound, Father John Misty, Pure Comedy. Round that out with Damn and 444. Now you've got probably the best records in their respective areas, right? And maybe even drop 444 and put in something like Idol's new record, something like Brutalism. Although, I mean, I don't know that, I don't know. There's a discussion to be had there. I think that Brutalism is probably a little bit better than 444, but that's an opinion thing. But then you've got now, you've got 5 records that come from really the 5 impressive, areas of music and genres that are doing well right now, and they can battle it out for the record of the year. Now, this isn't to say that I think that every single year they need to have one from each genre. I mean, if the top 5 records of the year were rap records, then they should be rap records. But here, I think this year you have a really unique opportunity to take these top 5 and really pit them against each other. And I would maybe still say that Damn wins. I think that rap music is doing the most right now. I think that, and I think that Damn is probably a better record than anything else that I just listed. I think you can make a very, very good case that Damn is the record of the year this year, But I just think that, and as much as these Album of the Year nominees are much better than they've been in the past, I'm actually very impressed with the Grammys this year. They've done a lot better job than they've done in the past. But I think that they could still do a little bit better and maybe cut The Lord out, cut Bruno Mars out. It's not that those aren't good albums, but, I mean, when we look back in 10 years, nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, 2017, that was the year that Melodrama from Lord came out. No, I mean, nobody's going to say that. They're going to look back and tell you when To Pimp a Butterfly came out. They might even look back and tell you when Damn came out, or when From A Room Volume 1 came out. I mean, those are big possibilities. But I think it'd be ridiculous to say that Melodrama is going to be the record of the year that's going to be remembered. But anyway, so those are my predictions for the Grammys. Let me know in the comments what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, how angry you are about Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit not being respected the way they deserve. And really, if you have any opinions on some of these that I left out, especially the metal category, I'm very interested to hear what people think about that, how well metal is being represented. I mean, genuinely, I am not at all well-versed enough to comment on that. But if you have any opinions, let me know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe if you want more. We've got some good reviews coming out here pretty soon, if I can ever get around to working on the videos. So, yeah, like, subscribe, share it away. And until next time, happy listening.